Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the sonar readings, her coffee growing cold in her hands. The numbers made no sense. 3 miles below the Pacific Ocean surface, her deep-sea scanner had found something impossible. Perfect geometric shapes. Massive ones. "Run it again," she told her research partner, Dr. Marcus Webb. "The equipment must be broken." Marcus shook his head. His weathered face creased with confusion. "I've checked it 5 times, Sarah. The readings are correct. There's a structure down there, and it's huge." Sarah looked at the monitor again. The sonar painted a picture of something that shouldn't exist. Straight lines and perfect angles. Buried in the ocean floor for who knew how long. The structure was at least 2 miles wide and appeared to be made of materials that their sensors couldn't identify. "How long has this been here?" she whispered. "Based on the sediment layers around it, I'd guess thousands of years, maybe tens of thousands." Above them, the research vessel times Deep Explorer times rocked gently in the calm Pacific waters. Sarah had been studying the ocean floor for 15 years, but she had never seen anything like this. Ancient civilizations didn't build underwater cities. They didn't have the technology. "We're going down," Sarah decided. "Prep the submarine." 2 hours later, Sarah and Marcus descended into the dark depths of the Pacific. Their small submarine, Nereid, was designed for deep ocean exploration. As they dropped deeper, the sunlight faded until only their artificial lights pierced the black water. "Depth, 2.5 miles, Marcus reported. "We should see it soon." "No." Sarah pressed her face to the porthole. The ocean floor below looked normal at first. Sand, rocks, the occasional deep-sea creature swimming past their lights. Then she saw it. "My God," she breathed. Rising from the ocean floor was a structure that belonged in a science fiction movie, not in Earth's deepest waters. Smooth metal walls covered in strange symbols stretched as far as their lights could reach. The metal didn't look old or corroded despite being underwater for thousands of years. Instead, it seemed to pulse with a faint inner light. "Are you recording this?" Sarah asked. "Every second," Marcus replied, his voice tight with excitement and fear. They circled the structure slowly. It was enormous. Definitely built by intelligent beings. But what civilization could have built this? And why was it here, hidden beneath miles of water? As they moved closer, Sarah noticed something else. "Marcus, look at those symbols. They're not random decoration. They're moving." Marcus looked where she pointed. The strange symbols on the metal walls were indeed shifting, flowing, like liquid, across the surface. As they watched, the symbols began to pulse faster, and the faint light inside the structure grew brighter. "I think we've triggered something," Marcus said nervously. Suddenly, the submarine's instruments went crazy. Every screen flickered, and new readings appeared that made no sense. The structure below them was powering up, drawing energy from somewhere deep beneath the ocean floor. "We need to surface. Now," Sarah said. But as they started to ascend, something incredible happened. The ocean around them began to glow. A soft blue light emanated from the structure, spreading outward like ripples in a pond. Fish scattered in all directions, and the water itself seemed to hum with energy. "Sarah, look at our communication equipment," Marcus said, his voice filled with wonder. Their radio, which had been silent in the deep ocean, suddenly crackled to life. But the sounds coming through weren't human voices. They were signals. Dozens of them, all broadcasting the same message in a language that sounded both alien and somehow familiar. As they reached the surface, Sarah's mind raced. She grabbed the satellite phone and called her contact at the university. "Dr. Rodriguez? It's Sarah. We've found something. Something big. I need you to check if any other research stations around the world are picking up unusual signals." The response came back within an hour. Research stations in the Atlantic, Indian, and Arctic oceans were all reporting similar findings. Massive structures buried in the ocean floor, all of them awakening at the same time, all of them sending out the same mysterious signals. But the most disturbing news came from space. The International Space Station reported that satellites around the world were detecting energy signatures unlike anything they had ever seen. The energy was coming from Earth itself, but not from any known technology. Sarah sat in her cabin that night, staring at the data they had collected. Whatever they had found wasn't built by any human civilization. The technology was too advanced, too alien. But if it wasn't human, who had built it? And why was it waking up now? After thousands of years, the implications terrified her. If there were ancient alien structures hidden all over Earth, what did that mean for humanity? Were they alone on their own planet? Had they ever been alone? Outside her window, the ocean looked peaceful under the starlight. But Sarah knew that beneath those calm waters, something ancient and powerful was stirring. Something that had been waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. She picked up the satellite phone again. This time, she called her contact at NASA. "I need to speak to someone with the highest security clearance you have," she said. "We've found something that changes everything." As she waited for the call to connect, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they had just opened a door that was meant to stay closed. The strange symbols on that underwater structure had looked almost like writing, but writing in a language that seemed to bypass her conscious mind and speak directly to something deeper. Tomorrow, she would return to the structure. She would study it, document it, and try to understand what it meant. But tonight, she sat in the darkness and wondered if humanity was ready for whatever was about to be revealed. Far below the ocean surface, the ancient structure continued to pulse with light, sending its signals to similar structures around the world. After 10,000 years of patient waiting, the Guardians were finally waking up. The emergency session of the Hegemony Council had been called for the first time in 300 years. Representatives from 12 different alien species gathered in the massive crystal chamber that floated in space between the stars. Each being was different in shape and size, but they all shared the same expression of deep concern. The first witness, a towering crystal being who had lived for over 50,000 years, stood at the center of the chamber. Its voice resonated through the minds of all present, speaking without words. "The ancient warnings have been triggered," the first witness announced. "The signals we hoped never to hear again are broadcasting across the galaxy. The human quarantine protocol is no longer in effect." A ripple of fear passed through the assembled delegates. The Krillian war leader, a massive creature covered in natural armor, spoke first. "Impossible. Humans are primitive. They barely understand fire, let alone space travel. Our scouts report they still fight wars with metal weapons." "Your scouts are wrong," the first witness replied. "Or rather, they see only what they are meant to see. The humans have been hidden from us, kept dormant until now, but something has triggered their awakening." On the other side of the galaxy, Sarah Chen stood in a hastily constructed research facility on the ocean surface. Around her, scientists from every major nation worked frantically to understand what they had discovered. In just 1 week, similar structures had been found in all of Earth's major oceans. Each one was identical in design, but served a different function. "The Pacific structure appears to be some kind of communication hub," Dr. Webb reported to the assembled team. "The Atlantic structure is definitely a power generation facility. It's drawing energy from Earth's core and distributing it to the others." Sarah nodded, studying the holographic displays that the structures had somehow activated in their minds. None of them understood how they could suddenly read alien symbols or operate technology that shouldn't exist, but they could. It was as if the knowledge had always been there, waiting to be unlocked. "What about the changes in the population?" asked Dr. Rodriguez, who had flown in from the university. "The reports coming in from around the world are disturbing." 9. 9. 9. Sarah knew what he meant. In the week since they had awakened the first structure, humans everywhere had begun to change. Test scores were skyrocketing. Athletes were breaking records that had stood for decades. People were solving complex mathematical problems they had never studied. Most disturbing of all, violence and crime rates had dropped to almost zero worldwide, as if humanity had suddenly remembered how to cooperate. It's not just mental changes, Dr. Webb added quietly. The medical reports show physical improvements too. Enhanced immune systems, improved reflexes, better eyesight. It's like someone is upgrading the entire human race, millions of light years away. The ethereal collective, beings of pure psychic energy, gathered in their crystal ships to discuss the growing crisis. For thousands of years, they had used their mental powers to influence the development of younger species. But Earth had always been invisible to them, a blank spot in their psychic awareness. Now we know why we could never touch their minds, whispered the ethereal prime. They were designed to be immune to our influence. But designed by whom? And for what purpose? The answer came from the oldest member of the Hegemony Council, a being so ancient that it remembered the galaxy before the current civilizations existed. The Chronicler, a living computer that stored the memories of 1 million species, accessed files that had been locked away for 40,000 years. The Architects, the Chronicler announced, its mechanical voice filled with static. They called themselves the Architects of Peace. We thought they were a myth, a legend told by primitive species to explain the unexplainable. But the records show they were real. The assembled delegates leaned forward as the chronicler displayed holographic images from the deepest archives. They showed beings of incredible power who traveled the galaxy not to conquer, but to prevent conflicts before they could start. When negotiations failed, they had other methods. The architects ended the Great War 40,000 years ago, the chronicler continued. A conflict that involved every species in the galaxy and threatened to destroy all intelligent life. But they didn't end it through superior technology or overwhelming force. They ended it by creating something new. Something designed specifically to maintain peace. The holographic display showed the final battle of the Great War. Massive fleets from hundreds of species, all fighting for control of the galaxy. Then, suddenly, they stopped. Ships simply powered down. Weapons ceased firing. Warriors laid down their arms and walked away from battles they had been fighting for centuries. They created a peacekeeping force, the first witness said, its crystal body dimming with remembered fear. Living beings engineered to end conflicts, but not through violence, through something far more terrifying. The ability to make other species simply stop fighting. On Earth, Sarah was beginning to understand the truth as ancient knowledge flooded her mind. The structures weren't just buildings, they were teaching machines. Each one contained information about humanity's true origin and purpose. The story they told was incredible and terrifying. Humans hadn't evolved naturally on Earth. They had been created by an ancient race called the Architects. Beings who had dedicated themselves to maintaining peace throughout the galaxy. But the Architects had faced a problem. How do you create peacekeepers who won't become conquerors themselves? Their solution was elegant and horrifying. They designed a species that would instinctively protect others, but would remain dormant until they were truly needed. They gave them incredible potential for intelligence, strength, and cooperation, but kept these abilities locked away. Most importantly, they made them naturally resistant to outside influence and control. Then the Architects had done something unprecedented. They had voluntarily destroyed themselves, removing the temptation to control their creation. They left behind only automated systems to monitor and guide human development, waiting for the day when the galaxy would face a threat so great that the peacekeepers would need to awaken. The question now, Sarah said to her assembled team, is what threat could be so terrible that it would require awakening an entire species of living weapons? Her answer came from the deep space monitoring stations that had been frantically scanning the galaxy since the awakening began. Long-range sensors had detected something approaching from the edge of the galaxy, something vast and hungry that consumed everything in its path. The Devourers, the ancient enemy that had started the Great War 40,000 years ago, were returning. And this time, they brought an entire galaxy's worth of consumed worlds with them. As Sarah stared at the sensor readings, she realized that humanity's awakening wasn't just about becoming protectors of Earth. They were about to become the galaxy's last hope for survival. Whether they were ready or not, the test was coming. Around the world, similar realizations were dawning on humans who had been touched by the ancient knowledge. They understood now why they had been created and what they were supposed to do. But they also understood the price of their power. To save the galaxy, they would have to become something more than human. The only question was whether they could save everyone else without losing themselves. Commander Zexhai of the Krillian Empire stood in his war room, staring at intelligence reports that made no sense. His species had conquered over 1,000 worlds through superior military might and strategic thinking. They feared nothing in the galaxy. Until now. "Sir," his aide said nervously, "we've received confirmation from the Archives Division. The Battle of the Void Gate wasn't against an unknown enemy as we believed. It was against a single human vessel." Zexhai's forearms tensed. The Battle of the Void Gate was legend among his people. Their greatest defeat, where an entire Krillian battle fleet had been destroyed by an enemy that appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. That defeat had happened 30,000 years ago, long before humans were supposed to have space travel. "One ship?" Zexhai growled. "One human ship destroyed 300 of our best warships?" "According to the recently unlocked archives, yes, sir. The human vessel was. It was described as impossible. Our weapons couldn't penetrate its defenses. Our best pilots couldn't match its speed. And when it fired..." The aide's voice trailed off. "When it fired, what? It didn't destroy our ships, sir. It absorbed them, broke them down at the molecular level, and used the material to repair and upgrade itself. By the end of the battle, the human ship was 3 times larger than when it started. On Earth, the changes were accelerating beyond anything Sarah and her team could have imagined. The 12 ocean structures had revealed themselves fully, rising from the depths as massive towers that stretched from the ocean floor to the surface. But they were just the beginning. Human colonies scattered across the solar system were reporting impossible developments. Mars base, which had struggled for years to maintain basic life support, suddenly found its systems upgrading themselves. New technologies appeared overnight. As if the equipment was remembering capabilities it had always possessed, but never used. "Sarah, you need to see this," Dr. Webb called from the communication center. He was monitoring transmissions from around the world, and what he was seeing terrified him. Sarah hurried over to find Webb staring at a world map covered in pulsing lights. Each light represented a human settlement, and they were all connected by streams of data flowing between them at impossible speeds. "What am I looking at?" Sarah asked. "Global human coordination," Webb replied. "Every person on the planet is somehow connected to this network. They're sharing knowledge, coordinating activities, working together like parts of a single organism." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She had been experiencing something similar herself. Thoughts and knowledge that weren't her own kept appearing in her mind. She could sense other humans around the world, feel their emotions and intentions. It was like becoming part of something much larger than herself. "The network isn't just on Earth," Webb continued. "We're receiving signals from human colonies on Luna, Mars, even the research stations in the asteroid belt. They're all part of it now." Across the galaxy, panic was spreading among the established civilizations. The ethereal collective, masters of psychic manipulation, discovered that their mental probes simply bounced off human minds, like water off glass. The Zephyrian Trade Federation found their economic models collapsing as human colonies suddenly became self-sufficient and stopped needing their goods. But it was the discovery of Earth's true nature that sent shockwaves through the galactic community. The planet itself is artificial, announced Dr. Veltar of the Hegemony Science Council to the Emergency Assembly. What we thought was a natural world is actually the largest construction project in galactic history. The continents, the oceans, even the moon. They're all part of a massive defensive installation. The evidence was overwhelming. Deep space sensors, now focused on the Sol system with unprecedented intensity, revealed energy signatures that painted a terrifying picture. Earth's crust contained weapon systems that dwarfed anything in the known galaxy. The moon was rotating to reveal its hidden side, a surface covered with defensive installations that had been dormant for thousands of years. But the most shocking discovery came from Mars. The red planet, long thought to be a barren world, was shedding its dusty exterior like an insect molting its shell. Beneath the familiar rusty surface lay gleaming metal structures that stretched across entire continents, shipyards that could construct vessels the size of small moons, manufacturing facilities that could reshape matter at the atomic level. Sarah watched the transformation from her command center, which had somehow grown from a simple research facility into a complex that rivaled the greatest installations in human space. She wasn't sure when she had started thinking of it as a command center or when she had begun to understand the tactical displays that surrounded her. The knowledge simply appeared in her mind when she needed it. The outer system defenses are coming online, reported Lieutenant Martinez, one of the military liaisons who had arrived when governments around the world realized the scope of what was happening. Sarah wasn't sure when Martinez had stopped being a simple liaison and become part of her command staff. Outer system defenses? Sarah asked. Martinez gestured to a holographic display that showed the solar system in 3 dimensions. Sarah could see Earth and its familiar neighboring planets. But there were new objects appearing on the display. Massive structures hidden in the asteroid belt, weapon platforms disguised as asteroids, sensor networks that stretched to the edge of the solar system. It appears the entire Sol system is a fortress, Martinez explained. One designed to defend against threats from outside the galaxy. The asteroid belt alone contains enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. Humanity hadn't been left on Earth to develop naturally. They had been left to guard a weapon system of unimaginable power. The planet itself was a military installation, and humans were its operators. But the most disturbing development was happening to humans themselves. Around the world, people were beginning to change in ways that went beyond enhanced intelligence and physical improvements. Some humans were developing direct interfaces with technology, able to control machines with thought alone. Others were displaying abilities that seemed to bend the laws of physics, moving objects without touching them, seeing through solid matter, communicating across vast distances without any equipment. Sarah, Webb said quietly, I think we need to consider the possibility that we're not becoming better humans. We're becoming something else entirely. Sarah knew he was right. She could feel it happening to herself. Her thoughts were faster now, more complex. She could perceive dimensions of reality that had been invisible to her before. Most disturbing of all, she was beginning to see other humans not as individuals, but as components of a larger system. The galaxy watched in growing terror as reports filtered in from across human space. Human ships that had been simple cargo vessels were transforming into something that looked more grown than built. Human colonies were expanding at impossible rates, reshaping entire worlds with technologies that shouldn't exist. And from the edge of the galaxy came the first confirmed sightings of the enemy that had triggered this awakening. Massive biological ships that consumed everything in their path, leaving empty space where star systems had once existed. They were called the Devourers, and they were heading toward the galaxy's core at a speed that would bring them to populated space within months. The Hegemony Council faced an impossible choice. They could try to stop humanity's transformation and risk triggering a defensive response from the most powerful military force in galactic history. Or they could trust that humanity would remember its original purpose as protectors rather than conquerors. As Sarah stood in her command center, watching the transformation of her species and her world, she wondered if that trust was justified. The power flowing through her was intoxicating, and she could feel similar intoxication in the minds of humans around the world. They were becoming gods, and gods rarely concerned themselves with the welfare of lesser beings. The galaxy's greatest nightmare was about to become reality. Humanity was awakening, and no one, not even humans themselves, knew what they would become. The first Devourer scout ships entered the outer edge of the galaxy like a plague of mechanical locusts. Each ship was the size of a small moon, its biomechanical hull pulsing with hungry life. Behind them, deep space sensors detected the main fleet, millions upon millions of vessels that had consumed entire galaxies on their journey across the void between galactic clusters. Admiral Korth of the Hegemony Defense Force stared at the tactical displays with growing despair. His combined fleets, representing the military might of 12 advanced civilizations, looked pathetic compared to what was coming. Even if every ship in the galaxy fought together, they would be outnumbered 1,000,000 to 1. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the Devourer scouts have entered the outer rim. They're consuming the Zerion system. All 7 planets, gone in less than an hour." Korth closed his eyes. The Zerion system had been home to 3 billion beings. Now it was just empty space and growing Devourer ships that had fed on everything the system contained. "Have we received any response from the Sol system?" he asked. "Nothing official, sir. But our long-range sensors are detecting massive energy buildups throughout human space. Whatever they're planning, it's big." On Earth, Sarah Chen stood at the center of what had once been the Pacific Ocean but was now revealed to be a vast command complex. The water itself had been drained away, exposing kilometers of gleaming metal surfaces covered with control systems that responded to human thought. Around her, hundreds of humans worked at stations they somehow knew how to operate, despite never having seen the technology before. But Sarah barely looked human anymore. Her skin held a faint, luminescent quality, and her eyes glowed with inner light. Neural interfaces had grown from her skull, connecting her directly to the vast computer systems that controlled Earth's defenses. She was no longer just Sarah Chen, marine archaeologist. She was the primary command node for humanity's awakening military force. "Status report," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there weeks before. "All planetary defense systems are online," reported Commander Hassan, who had undergone similar changes. "Lunar Fortress is at full readiness. Mars shipyards have completed the first wave of defense vessels." Sarah nodded, processing information flows that would have overwhelmed her previous human consciousness. Through the neural network that now connected all of humanity, she could sense the deployment of forces throughout the solar system. Ships that seemed to grow rather than being built, their hulls alive and responsive to their human pilots' thoughts. "What about the outer colonies?" she asked. "Titan Base has successfully converted the entire moon into a manufacturing facility. Ceres Station is now a mobile weapons platform. The asteroid belt has been reorganized into defensive formations. The transformation had been stunning to watch. In just 2 weeks, humanity had reshaped the entire solar system. Asteroids had been moved into precise formations, creating a defensive network that stretched across billions of cubic kilometers. Planetary surfaces had opened to reveal hidden factories that produced technologies beyond the understanding of galactic science. But it was the changes to humans themselves that were most dramatic. Every person in the solar system was now connected to the collective consciousness that guided their species' military awakening. They retained their individual personalities but shared knowledge, reflexes, and purpose with every other human alive. "Sarah," Commander Hassan said quietly, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Hegemony Council. They're asking for help." Sarah smiled, an expression that would have terrified any alien who saw it. Her enhanced consciousness could perceive the approaching devourer fleet as clearly as if it were right in front of her. Billions of hungry ships, each one a weapon of mass consumption that had devoured the life force of countless worlds. "Open the channel," she said. The holographic image of Admiral Korth appeared before her, his alien features tight with desperation. "Dr. Chen, I know our species haven't always been cooperative, but we need your help. The devourers will be here within days, and we don't have the firepower to stop them." "We know," Sarah replied. "We've been tracking them since before you detected their scouts. Don't worry, Admiral. We were created for this." As she spoke, Sarah was simultaneously coordinating the deployment of human forces across multiple star systems. Ships that hadn't existed a month ago were moving into position with crews that had learned to fight wars among the stars without ever leaving their home planet. The first engagement came sooner than expected. 3 Devourer scouts, each the size of a large city, dropped out of hyperspace near the outer edge of the Sol system. They immediately began scanning for suitable matter to consume, their biomechanical sensors probing for planets rich in organic life. They never got the chance to feed. The asteroid that intercepted the first scout looked natural enough, just another chunk of space rock drifting through the void. But when it came within range, the asteroid opened like a flower to reveal a human pilot sitting in a cockpit that seemed to be grown from living metal. The pilot's consciousness was directly connected to the ship's systems, making human and machine into a single entity. The Devourer scout's weapons, designed to break down matter at the molecular level, struck the human ship with enough force to destroy a small planet. The energy simply flowed through the ship's hull without causing damage, absorbed and redirected by systems that operated on principles the galaxy's greatest scientists couldn't comprehend. The human ship's response was swift and terrifying. Instead of conventional weapons, it projected a field that caused the Devourer scout to turn on itself. The biomechanical hull began consuming its own systems, as if the ship's hunger had been redirected inward. Within minutes, the massive vessel had devoured itself completely, leaving only a small sphere of compressed matter that the human ship absorbed and used to upgrade its own systems. The other 2 scouts tried to flee, but space itself seemed to bend around them, trapping them in a gravity well that shouldn't have been possible. More human ships appeared, not dropping out of hyperspace or emerging from hiding, but simply coming into existence, as if reality had been rewritten to include them. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted less than 10 minutes. 3 Devourer scouts that could have consumed entire star systems were reduced to raw materials and absorbed by human vessels that grew larger and more complex with each victory. News of the engagement spread throughout the galaxy within hours. Species that had never agreed on anything suddenly found themselves united in terror of what humanity had become. The Krillian Empire, master strategists who had conquered half the known galaxy, ran simulations of combat against human forces and found no scenario in which they could win. "They don't fight like any military force we've ever encountered," reported General Vexhai to the Emergency Council session. "Their ships adapt in real time, learning from every attack and becoming immune to it. Their pilots seem to share consciousness across multiple vessels. And their technology, it operates on principles that violate everything we know about physics." The ethereal collective, beings of pure psychic energy, had tried to probe human minds during the battle and recoiled in shock. "They think as one," the ethereal prime reported. "Not a hive mind like the insects, but something far more complex. Individual consciousness linked by purpose and shared experience. They have become something new, something we cannot touch or influence." But the most disturbing reports came from the few surviving alien observers who had witnessed the battle directly. The human ships hadn't just defeated the Devourer scouts. They had done something far worse. They had turned the Devourer's own nature against them, forcing them to consume themselves. It was a level of understanding and control that suggested humanity had studied their enemy for far longer than anyone had realized. As news of humanity's victory spread, alien civilizations throughout the galaxy faced a terrible realization. The Devourers, which had seemed like an unstoppable force of nature, were just another enemy to be defeated by Earth's awakening guardians. But that raised an even more frightening question. If humans could defeat the Devourers so easily, what chance did anyone else have if humanity decided they were a threat? Sarah felt the fear rippling through the galactic community, through sensors and communication networks she hadn't known existed a month ago. Part of her, the part that was still recognizably human, felt sympathy for the alien civilizations that now watched their every move with terror. But another part of her, the part that was connected to the vast consciousness of her awakening species, felt something else entirely. She felt the cold satisfaction of a weapon finally being used for its intended purpose. The Devourers were coming, bringing with them the consumed matter of entire galaxies. When they arrived, they would find humanity waiting, and they would learn why the architects had considered humans their greatest creation. The main Devourer fleet arrived like a living wall of death sweeping across the galaxy. Millions of biomechanical ships, each one larger than most space stations, moved in perfect coordination toward the galactic core. Behind them, they left nothing but empty space, where thousands of star systems had once existed. Sarah Chen, now more interface than human, stood at the center of Earth's primary command nexus. Her consciousness had expanded beyond anything she could have imagined weeks earlier. She could perceive the entire galaxy as a single tactical display, sense every human vessel across thousands of light years, and coordinate military operations that spanned multiple dimensions of spacetime. Devourer main force has entered the mid-rim, reported Captain Torres, her voice carrying the same harmonic undertones that marked all awakened humans. Estimated arrival at galactic core in 72 hours. Sarah nodded, processing data streams from across human space. The awakening had progressed faster than even the ancient protocols had anticipated. Every human in the galaxy was now connected to the collective consciousness. Their individual capabilities enhanced beyond the dreams of any other species. But with that power came changes that worried the part of Sarah that still remembered being purely human. Status of the liberation fleets? She asked. Torres hesitated for a moment. All non-human colonies in sectors 7 through 12 have been secured. Local populations are being relocated to protected worlds for their own safety. Sarah felt a flicker of unease. The word liberation had taken on new meaning as humanity's transformation progressed. Human forces weren't just defending against the Devourers. They were actively taking control of alien worlds to protect their inhabitants. What had started as offers of assistance had quickly become non-negotiable relocations. Resistance? Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer through the neural network. Minimal. The Krillian Empire tried to contest our occupation of their outer territories. The conflict lasted 18 minutes. The efficiency was staggering. Krillian warriors, bred for combat across 1,000 generations, had been unable to even damage human vessels. Their weapons simply couldn't function against technology that rewrote the laws of physics in real time. Their tactical advantages meant nothing against an enemy that could predict their strategies before they formed them. But it wasn't the ease of victory that troubled Sarah. It was how naturally her species had taken to domination. Each successful engagement made humans more confident in their superiority, more certain that other species needed their guidance and protection. The line between guardian and conqueror was becoming harder to see. Sarah, came a voice through the network. It was Dr. Webb, calling from the Centauri system where he was overseeing the construction of new human settlements. I think we need to talk. Sarah opened a private communication channel. Something that required only a thought with her enhanced capabilities. What is it, Marcus? What is it, Marcus? The colonists here aren't voluntary anymore, he said quietly. We're moving entire alien populations to protected reserves and claiming their worlds for human expansion. This isn't protection, Sarah, it's conquest. The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. Not because they were untrue, but because she realized how little they bothered her. The enhanced consciousness that connected all humanity carried with it a sense of destiny, a certainty that they were meant to guide and protect lesser species. Even when that protection required taking away their freedom. "The devourers are coming," she replied, hearing the coldness in her own voice. "Everything else is secondary to stopping them." "But at what cost?" Webb pressed. "We're becoming exactly what the galaxy fears we might become." Before Sarah could respond, alarms echoed through the command center. The first wave of devourer ships had reached the outer colonies, and the real battle was about to begin. The engagement that followed would be studied by military historians for generations, if there were any historians left to study it. The devourers came in overwhelming numbers. Each ship a weapon of mass consumption that had devoured the life force of countless worlds. They moved in perfect coordination, their biomechanical hulls pulsing with hungry anticipation. They met humanity's response like a wave crashing against an immovable cliff. Human vessels emerged from seemingly empty space. Their crews no longer fully human, but something far more dangerous. Where devourer weapons tried to consume matter, human technology simply refused to be consumed. Where devourer ships tried to adapt and evolve, human consciousness evolved faster. The battle wasn't fought with conventional weapons. Instead, humanity turned the devourer's own nature against them on a galactic scale. Ship after ship began consuming itself as human technology rewrote their basic programming. Entire fleets dissolved into component atoms that human vessels absorbed and used to grow larger and more powerful. Within hours, what had seemed like an unstoppable force was being systematically converted into raw materials for humanity's expansion. The devourers, who had consumed the matter of entire galaxies, found themselves becoming food for an enemy they couldn't comprehend. But as the victory became clear, Sarah realized that something fundamental had changed in humanity's collective consciousness. The thrill of absolute power, the intoxication of being unstoppable, was transforming her species into something the architects might not have intended. Reports flooded in from across human space. Alien civilizations were surrendering without being asked, offering themselves as protected subjects of humanity's expanding empire. The Hegemony Council had dissolved itself and begged for human administrators to govern their worlds. Species that had ruled star systems for millennia were willingly accepting human oversight. "Sarah," Captain Torres said, her voice filled with the satisfaction of absolute victory. "The last devourer stronghold has fallen. We've achieved total victory. The galaxy is safe." Sarah nodded. But the word, safe, echoed strangely in her enhanced consciousness. Safe, for whom? Safe, from what? The devourers were gone, consumed by the very hunger they had brought to countless worlds. But in their place, humanity had become something that might be even more dangerous. Not because they were evil, but because they were absolutely certain they were right. As reports continued to flow in, Sarah realized the scope of what had happened. Human forces weren't just occupying strategic worlds anymore. They were systematically taking control of entire civilizations. Alien governments were being dissolved and replaced with human administrators. Entire species were being relocated to worlds chosen for them by human planners who knew what was best for everyone. And the most troubling part was how little resistance there was. Not because humanity was using force, but because they genuinely offered protection, security, and prosperity. They could solve problems that had plagued alien civilizations for millennia. They could prevent wars, eliminate poverty, and guide younger species toward better futures. The question was whether anyone had a choice in accepting that guidance. "Dr. Chen," came a transmission from the ruins of the Hegemony capital. "This is Admiral Korth. On behalf of what remains of the Galactic Council, I want to thank you for saving us all. 10 time. Well, Dr. Chen, I want to thank you for saving us all. Sarah accepted the transmission, looking at the alien officer who had once commanded fleets that could destroy planets. Now he looked small and tired, grateful, but also afraid. The galaxy is safe now, Sarah replied. We'll make sure it stays that way. Sarah. As the transmission ended, Sarah stood in her command center surrounded by the technology that had transformed her species into gods. Through the neural network, she could sense every human in the galaxy, all of them connected by purpose and power. They had saved everyone, just as they were designed to do. But looking out at the stars that now belonged to humanity, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they had lost something essential in the process. They had gained the power to protect the galaxy, but in doing so, they had become the very thing that the galaxy might someday need protection from. The devourers were gone, consumed by their own hunger. But humanity remained, benevolent and absolute, watching over their charges with the patient care of gardeners tending their crops. And deep in the part of her consciousness that still remembered being purely human, Sarah wondered if there was any difference between protection and captivity. When the protected had no choice in the matter, the galaxy was safe. But the question of whether it was free would haunt the stars for generations to come.